The topic of my ISM paper was examining academic disadvantages of English language learners. I selected this topic for two main reasons. First, at a national level, there's been a general increase in English language learners in public schools and public school classrooms. Second, on a more personal level, this is a current and applicable topic in my own school. While the school where I teach is small, our enrollment consists of about 43% Hispanic English language learners. In my own classroom, about 9 of my 29 students are Hispanic English language learners. This relates to our course content because throughout the semester we've examined the inconsistencies which diverse students often face. This has ranged from small-scale issues which take place in classrooms and schools to larger-scale issues such as policies and practices enforced by districts. My overall guiding question is, why are English language learners often misidentified as underachieving? Through my own personal experiences and research, I've noticed a correlation between English language learners and academic achievement compared to their white peers. This made me wonder what factors are contributing to this and how can they be minimized or prevented. Compared to other professions, education is a field that's highly influenced by outside factors. The diverse students in our classrooms are no exception. While immigration is typically a political issue, it has great influence on the students we teach in our classrooms and schools. I found this quote to be especially helpful and meaningful in guiding my research and writing throughout the ISM project. There's many topics of discussion that come and go from the spotlight in education, but the presence of English language learners in our classrooms and schools is not one of these topics. Statistics and research have proven that there's an increase in English language learners in our classrooms, and that's expected to continue to rise. This information was significant during my research because it supported my idea of this being a relevant issue which needs to be addressed. Rather than continuing with the same practices which have not been working for English language learners, we need to identify the inconsistencies which are contributing to their academic underachievement and find a way to minimize that. As expected, one of the most significant barriers between English language learners and academic achievement is the language gap. This can come in three main forms: teacher and student, student and parent and teacher. When these three groups speak different languages than each other, it becomes difficult to communicate and work together to promote academic achievement. Another issue that falls into this category is the difference between academic and conversational language. Research has found it takes about 1 year for somebody to become proficient in academic English, whereas conversational English you can quickly pick up on cues, key phrases, and words. This is a common difficulty with many of my English language learner students. They may be proficient at speaking and listening in English, Spanish, or both, but when it comes to reading and writing, they have difficulties. This language barrier can often make English language learners appear as underachieved or as having a learning disability. Despite the language barrier, learning differences, and academic achievement of English language learners, they still have to take the same grade level benchmarks, standardized tests, and classroom assessments as their English-speaking peers. In schools which rely heavily on standardized test scores, many English language learners are over-referred to special education programs than English-speaking students. In addition to being over-referred for special education programs, English language learners are twice as likely to be diagnosed with a specific learning disability or a speech and language impairment. They're also less likely than their white peers to be placed into a least restrictive learning environment. These are just a few possible solutions I've come across during my research. Some of these I have also implemented in my own classroom. The first solution is to present content in students' native language. This also leads to a higher need for bilingual teachers. As we've discussed throughout this course, it's also beneficial to use culturally responsive teaching methods. And there's also a high need for teacher preparation programs that focuses specifically on instructing English language learners and diverse students. Next is to minimize language barriers between home and school. And last is to provide language accommodations on standardized and benchmark testing. While these are small changes, it's likely that this will minimize the factors or stop the cycle that leads to underachievement in English language learners.